Call to order the city council meeting for July the 20th, 2021. And the first item that we have on the agenda is item A, a roll call and posting of the agenda.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Here.
Councilmember Perrello,
He's on mute. Yeah.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Here.
Councilmember Turan,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Basua.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
And
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall Bulletin Board on July 8th, 2021.
we do have Councilman Perrello. I see him. He's got muted, so he's there. Okay, item number B, we don't have any public comments in closed session items at this time. So item C, we have a conference with legal counsel, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will recess to a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 to confer with its attorneys. The matter being discussed is City of Oxnard versus Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck LLP. The City Council will also recess to a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 to give instructions to its real property negotiators regarding the property located at 1800 Solar Drive in Oxnard. The agency's negotiators are Omar Castro, Tim Genske, and Brian Hutchinson. The party being negotiated with is Mission Produce Incorporated, and under negotiation is the price in terms of payment. And that is what we're going into closed session for.
Thank you, and we'll return at 6 o'clock for our ceremonial opening. And we have Mayor Pro Tem, I think he just came on, Councilman Perrello. Thank you. We're going into closed session. closed session. Before we go to the ceremonial opening, Mr. City Attorney, do we have any comments, announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. There are no actions to report from closed session this evening.
Thank you so much. Our next item is opening ceremonies. And to start off with please follow me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, our next item is items not on the agenda. And tonight we have four speakers. And we'll start off with Morgan Roth, followed by Henry Barrow Sapien. Morgan Roth.
Mayor Morgan Roth and Mr. Alvarado Sapien are not available at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and we can come back to it later. And then our next speaker is going to be Douglas Partello, followed by Lucy Cartagena. Douglas Partello.
Mr. Partello, you may unmute by pressing *6. Please unmute.
Is Douglas on?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Mr. Partello is not available at the moment.
Okay, then next, last person is Lucy Cartagena.
Mayor, Ms. Cartagena is also not available at this time.
Okay, so then we're going to go into the city manager's report, item F. F1. Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here we go. We're getting the slides up on the screen. So as usual, we start with the pandemic updates. It's coming up on the screen. Okay. So I think everyone's heard on the news that apparently in all 50 states of the country, COVID cases are starting to inch back up slowly, but unfortunately steadily. Around our region, we're aware of some counties that have reinstated a mask mandate for indoor use in public spaces. Our county has announced at this point that it is a mask recommendation, whether you are vaccinated or not, that people utilize masks. Highly recommended when you are out and about outside of your home, but in indoor spaces. Next one that's on the screen here is the housingiskey.com. That web address, no pun intended, is key for folks, whether you are tenants or landlords, in getting rent relief, but that funding is also available for utility payment relief. So if you're behind on rent, or if you're behind on your electric bill, your water bill, your garbage bill, your gas bill, all of your utilities, you can also apply there. Again, the web address is housingiskey.com. And if you need to call, you can call the phone number listed here. It's 833-430-2122. Obviously, highly recommend all of our residents to utilize these funds that have been made to provide relief, again, for back rent, as well as back utility payments. The mobile vaccination clinics, again, thanks to our partners at the County Public Health Department, continue to be available throughout the county. And starting tomorrow, there is one at the Mary Star of the Sea Church, which is at 463 Pleasant Valley Road in Oxnard. They will be providing vaccines starting at 11 a.m. all the way through 6 p.m. Then the next time the mobile clinic is back in Oxnard, it will be Friday and Saturday this weekend. On Friday, it will be at the Garden Church in North Oxnard United Methodist. And that is at 1801 Joylette Place. That mobile vaccine clinic will be open from noon to 4 p.m. On Saturday, this coming Saturday, July 24th, between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Lowe's Home Improvement in their parking lot, which is 301 West Gonzales Road. So that should be pretty easily accessible. And then heading into next week on Monday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Nyland Acres Community Center, which is at 3334 Santa Clara Avenue. Again, Monday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesday, which is July 28th, in the late afternoon from 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., you can get your vaccine shot at the Boys and Girls Club on 5th Street in Oxnard. It's 1900 West 5th Street. On Thursday, July 29, starting at 11 a.m. through 6 p.m., United Farm Worker Foundation's office at 910 South A Street. And then Sunday, which is already Sunday, August 1st, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Channel Islands Harbor. And it will be, the mobile clinic will be at 3900 or 3900 Pelican Way. And then finally, the latest date we have is Monday, August 2nd. That will be at Channel Islands High School at 1400 Raiders Way. And that clinic will be open at 1:30 through 6 p.m. So those are the mobile vaccination clinics. Now, the static clinics, the more permanent ones, remain open, and they are all walk-ins. So no appointments required any longer. So there are those 4 clinics there. North Oxnard Public Health Clinic, which is at 2240 East Gonzales Road. And that is open Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. On Thursdays, they open 2 extra hours until 6:30 p.m. Next is the Babies R Us building that continues to be open from Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and also open on Saturdays at 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Next, South Oxnard C Street, the county's clinic there at 2500 South C Street. That clinic, vaccination clinic, is open Monday through Friday, 10:30 to 4:30 p.m. And finally, Oxnard College remains open for now. It is at 3250 South Rose Avenue. They are open from Saturday through Monday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, they open at noon to 7:30 p.m. Thank you for the echo. And they're closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And for if you need any of this information, again, at a later time after viewing this meeting, all this information is available at VenturaCountyRecovers.org, also available on the City of Oxnard's website. All this information is available at VenturaCountyRecovers.org, also available on the Oxnard's website. All this information is
We're gonna,
available at Ventura County covers. It seems to be a
Diego, get a lot of
delay.
feedback.
And then once again, I started with this because I thought it was important, but the county, again, we have the health advisory that strongly recommends that we wear masks indoors to prevent further spread of COVID. And we continue here. We've never suspended this here in the city's facilities. Our facilities that serve the public are open for the most part, and we do ask that if you come in to conduct any business, that you wear a mask and observe the distancing guidelines. Now, we have masks available at all of our public interfacing buildings. If you happen to not come in with one, we just ask that you put one on. Thank you. Next is the ongoing reminder that later in the fall, Amazon will be opening. Let me go backwards. Okay. That Amazon will be opening, and at a certain point, they will release the applications to the world. But we have in an agreement with Amazon that we will start recruiting Oxnard residents ahead of time to get our folks ready. So we've got a series of informational meetings and events, as well as Amazon-specific job fairs coming up over the summer. What you need to do is sign up. It's very straightforward. The city's website, www.oxnard.org/Amazon. Or the other thing you can do, if you have a smartphone, you can scan that QR code, and that'll take you right to the location. But we certainly encourage all of Oxnard residents who could use a decent job that provides not only slightly above minimum wage pay, but also provides health care, 401k plan, holiday vacation days, as well as potentially educational assistance if you want to continue with your education once you are employed there. Again, they will be opening their applications for this particular site here in Oxnard to the greater world later this summer, but we want to get our residents prepared ahead of time so that Oxnard residents' applications are the first through the door at Amazon. We have been starting the updates here with regard to the city's, what we call the 311 Green Team, cleaning up Oxnard's illegal dumping. So this is an update for the time period of June 27 to July 10. And as you can see, during that 2-week period, we succeeded in completing more than 500 work orders, collected 85 tons of garbage. Not happy about the fact that there's that much garbage being dumped around our community, but at least satisfied that our staff are able to help clean it up. Also, 40 refrigerators, 209 mattresses, and continuing our help with cleaning up at homeless encampments. So again, you'll be seeing these updates every 2 weeks. Okay, this is just an announcement that we, like all communities across the country, will be engaging in our own after the 2020 census count. And after we get the information, we have to then begin redistricting to basically, it's a rebalancing act of the population in Oxnard to be essentially equally weighted among our 6 districts. Again, a lot of cities, a lot of communities have to go through this. And it also happens not only here at the local level, but at the county, state, and congressional districts. So we will have our process begin at our next city council meeting, by the way, which is on Thursday, July 29th. And this segment of it to kick off our redistricting effort is going to begin at 7 p.m. So we highly recommend that people tune in. Well, we always recommend that everyone tune in to our council meetings, but I know some nights it's less interesting than others, but redistricting is really, really important. And it's something we're going to do not again for another decade. So again, you can watch on the 29th on our two television stations, Spectrum Channel 10, as well as Frontier Channel 35. It also streams live on our YouTube station and online at the city's website. So that should be fun and interesting. With regard to meetings, just another reminder that we will be undergoing construction for the purposes of the technology infrastructure updates here in the council chambers. So that will take place during August and September. Now, we don't have meetings in August, but we obviously come back in September. And unfortunately, in September, we will be holding the meetings completely remotely. So during that time, you'll still be able to watch it on the TV, although there will be a slight delay in the broadcast. So it's sort of like the old-fashioned television network delay of hopefully not more than a minute. It will be live on YouTube as well as on the city's website. We apologize for the inconvenience, but it's something we really need to do here in the council chambers. And then, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to leave this slide up because this is a new segment that we're trying, and we're hoping to do this at our council meetings in an effort to help local businesses recover in the coming out of this pandemic. Hopefully we do truly come out of it in this calendar year. So we're going to leave this slide up so that when you go to council business and the council members make their various comments, they can speak to their particular recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, one question I have on the Amazon jobs. Are we also advertising for Spanish radio, like Laser Radio and La M and also Vida?
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get the answer for you. I know we're publicizing it. I don't know all the venues.
I think that'd be great. And also, I really like the banners that we have out in the street, announcing the jobs too, which is really, really great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is council comments, and council can make some brief announcements. I'd like to hopefully stay within 3 minutes. And also, if the council members have any agenda items they'd like to place for future agendas, that'd be the time to share that. Council members, do we have any comments? I don't see. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief on this. This is an item we've talked about at committee meeting and also previously a council meeting. And last week there was a very serious accident at Gonzales and Rose, and unfortunately a very young lady, a 13-year-old girl, lost her life. What disappoints me about the whole incident, not only the fact that she lost her life, is that she had to go to VCMC for medical treatment when we had an excellent hospital right there that does not have trauma status. And I will restate my position that Oxnard, being 1/4 of the county's population, should have a trauma status hospital available to its residents here. And mom was transported to another facility. So I don't want to go into too much detail because it is unagendized, but I would like this to come back to council for discussion. I think that we failed our community by the way this might have been handled. I don't know if it would have made any difference in any way, shape, or form, but we should have had the opportunity. So I would like for a status report to come back to council as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Turan, followed by Madrigal. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing that up. My condolences to the family of the young lady who lost her life at that intersection in that collision. So thank you very much. And my condolences to everyone affected. For my updates, I have some quick things, but I do want to start with the slide that is here for the public. And you can see that my recommendation for this meeting is Burrito Express, which is located on the corner of 2nd Street and Ventura Road. And it's actually right across the street from my neighborhood. And the owners, Ira and Erica, are very community-focused people and wonderful people to speak with. And I just want to mention that this location has actually quite a history in my own personal life, in that I go there often. As I mentioned, it's across the street from my neighborhood. It's a quick walk for us. It's probably better that we walk back also afterwards, just to kind of walk off the great meals we have there. But also, in the past, my neighborhood has held neighborhood council meetings there. We've had executive board meetings there over tacos and burritos and horchata. And you can, if you go there, you can see all of the accolades and recognition that the business has received over the years for their participation and their giving back to the community. So I just wanted to have them as my recommendation for this meeting. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to do that and to share. I hope you'll all go check them out as a locally owned business. So very quickly, as my updates, thank you to the green team for 311. That was very impressive stats. I hope the public will take a look at those and continue to use the 311 app to report illegal dumping and other items you see around the city. I attended the River Park Neighborhood Council meeting along with Councilmember Perillo last Thursday. And I want to thank the executive board for putting that meeting together and having very informative information about the levy, which leads to my next item. This Thursday, the 22nd at 6 p.m., there is going to be a Zoom meeting in a collaboration with the County of Ventura, the watershed protection folks, and the City of Oxnard. We will be holding a webinar around the levies as well to discuss that, answer questions that the public may have, and the county will talk about the scope of the project and the information they're seeking. And city staff will be on hand to discuss additional conversations that have happened in the past around other amenities that might be beneficial to the area as well, such as a bike path. Again, all very initial discussion, but the public is invited to join and hear about it and then voice their thoughts on it as well. And then you may have seen this mentioned on the city's social media outlets, and I'm very excited to share that a model that the police department had used of doing outreach to folks in the community through very casual conversation and just being available for discussion or questions or whatever it may be. So I'll have 3 events coming up in partnership with the police department, who will send a member of the neighborhood policing team will be there. And then the fire department is sending a representative who will have some really great information for folks too about safety and looking at ready and resilient for that program. So just very quickly, Sunday, the 25th, I'll be at La Michoacana, which is next to Smart and Final on Oxnard Boulevard from 2 to 4 p.m. Wednesday, July 28th, I'll be at Burrito Express, which is actually the restaurant I mentioned earlier. And as I mentioned, they're great with the community. And I'll be there 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. that Wednesday evening. And then the same people each time, a member of the neighborhood policing team and a member of the fire department. And then Saturday, Starbucks at the Collection from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And really looking forward to it. I hope folks will come out just to at least say hi, talk a little bit, tell me what your thoughts are about the community, about what's going on in our city. And we'll have folks on hand if you have questions about public safety issues as well. And then lastly, 2 last things here. Congratulations to all the Oxnard College grads. I know that I've mentioned this in the past, but it feels so great to drive around and see those banners all over the city of our graduates from our local community college and see them furthering their education. And thank you to Oxnard College and their associate student government for putting that together. That's really great. And last thing is, I want to thank all of the support and condolences that I have received and that my family has received for the passing of my Aunt Margaret, who was 79 years old and just passed just a few weeks ago. And so thank you all very much for the condolences. My family is very appreciative of that. And it means a lot during this time. So thank you, Mayor. Those are my comments.
Thank you, and my condolences with Aunt Margaret. I know your aunt. My condolences too for that. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Councilmember Madrigal, followed by Councilwoman Lopez. Madrigal.
Thank you. First, I 100% support Mayor Pro Tem's comments. My condolences to the young lady's family. The young lady attended Cesar Chavez School and she was about to go into the 8th grade. So my condolences to her family. During these last 2 weeks, I had the pleasure of attending the opening day of the Challengers League in Eastside Little League in Colonia Park with the mayor and the OPOA. It was a great event and, great resident participation. Coming up this Saturday is FGH Retail and Tree Factory. It's a meet and greet. It'll be this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's at 2320 North Rose Avenue or right next door to Best Buy. And this is a possible cannabis company coming in. It is one of the local companies and they're having a meet and greet. So if anyone's interested or has any more questions, concerns, they'll be there from 9 to 5 on Saturday. Also, this week, the Cowboys open up the training camp. There will be gatherings to all Cowboys fans. If you're interested, please attend the training camp. They'll be here for about 2 weeks. I'll move on towards Uptown Pizza. It's great business. It has been open for close to 15 years. Great business owner. Like I said, great pizza and excellent breadsticks. Those breadsticks were great. First time I had them when I was getting my master's degree at Cal Lutheran at the Oxnard Center. So fell in love ever since then, and I try to go at least once a month. And kind of two last things. First of all, thank you to all residents and businesses that have reached out over the last 2 weeks with issues and concerns in the city. I'll specifically focus on one, and that's a conversation I had today with a former college roommate who actually owns a business here in the city. And it has to do with 311. First of all, great work from city staff with the 311 app. Sadly, though, there is still a lot of trash out in our cities and our alleys. As a city, we do need to look at what we can do to stop people from illegally dumping. This is an issue, and he talked to me about it, how, particular alleys, when he goes to his parents' house on the south end, the alley was a mess, and he knows that it was actually cleaned up in the last week, but 2 days later, it looked like it was never touched again as someone else came and made it a dumping ground. And this is something that we need to focus on, particular neighborhoods where in some instances, it's not even the residents who live in the neighborhood, but it's residents from other neighborhoods who just feel that, oh, this is a dumping ground, and they just drop off their trash or large items in alleys. And, I know this has been an issue way back in before I was on council. I've discussed this at certain neighborhood meetings, and, we need to try to find a solution to this. If not, this is never going to end. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll certainly echo a lot of the comments that my fellow council members have mentioned with the tragedies in our city, and as Council Member Madrigal just mentioned, with the illegal dumping, certainly a problem throughout our city. And I think any suggestions, recommendations, we're all in this together. We're all part of this community, so let's all do our best to take care of our surroundings. So. With that, the business recommendation I have is on the screen, Carnitas Mi Rancho, which recently changed their name, formerly or better known as Carnitas El Rey. Locally, local family owned, really good business, really good food, especially anyone who does like carnitas, anyone is from Michoacan, really good restaurants. So I highly recommend anyone to support them and go out and eat. Additionally, last week I participated as a representative from the city on the Beacon, which is the Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. And I just wanted to flag and give a shout out to Isidro Figueroa from our planning department, who gave a really good presentation on the city's climate and sea level rise vulnerability and adaptation plan. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Isidro and thank him for being a part of that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Basua.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also going to go ahead and echo what my colleagues have been saying in regards to the tragedy. And I support Mayor Pro Temp's request to look further into what we can do in regards to getting St. John's Hospital back to that trauma center that they need in order to assist our residents. I want to go ahead and thank the Coastal Keepers. On July 10th, they had an event out on J Street and Bard where they picked up some trash. I also want to thank Robert and Angel with Carmen Ramirez supervisor's office came out and assisted with that cleanup. So thank you very much to them. I was not able to attend because I was out of town, but I want to make sure that they get at least some of the recognition for cleaning up our community. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Tacos Mi Pueblo. Tacos Mi Pueblo is located in the Walgreens Shopping Center on Channel Islands and Rose Avenue. Handmade tortillas are made, and you can see them making them fresh. They have really, really good mariscos too if you're into cocteles. So definitely I would recommend the restaurant. One of my favorites to go to. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perello.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Councilmember McDonald, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, because he's advocated for this issue with St. John's Hospital for quite some time. He's not a Johnny-come-lately on this. I support that, but I also support that we don't get a second-class trauma center. The city of Oxnard deserves a first-class trauma center, a first-class trauma center. There have been issues with St. John's Hospital in the past, and the residents of this city deserve first-class treatment. And that is something that we should all shoot for. I'll do whatever I can to assist that, but I will not settle for second class for the residents of Oxnard. Had the opportunity to attend the Windsor North River Ridge Neighborhood Council meeting, and as Councilman Turan mentioned, the River Park Neighborhood Council meeting. Had the opportunity to attend the VRSD board meeting and the Airport Authority meeting with Councilwoman Vianney Lopez, the general manager for the Ventura Airport Authority, Mr. Kip Turner, who I felt was doing an extremely good job, turned in his resignation. Very, very surprising to a lot of the board members. At least that's the statements that they made. And I hope that when the county decides to pick one member from the Airport Authority and the Airport Advisory, that they at least give the county and the people that are going to be on that board picking some heads up of what they expect from a general manager. In my opinion, they hung that general manager out to dry. And if you don't give him his marching orders and you don't back him up, I don't expect how you expect the individual to be successful. He walked into a buzzsaw and he didn't have the support, in my opinion, of the county CEO and the county's attorney's office. And I wish him the very best going forward. The issues this past week, been kind of very interesting to me. And I want to thank a city employee, Mr. Adams. I don't have his first name. I don't recall his first name, but Mr. Adams saw an incident where there potentially were people's lives at risk, put himself at risk to shield the members of the public that were at risk. Mr. Adams, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I believe that's a credit to all the city employees in the city of Oxnard. Seldom do people recognize the people that step up and step out to help their fellow residents. Mr. Adams, you deserve a big thank you from me and the residents of the city. The issues that have come up that I need to address, that I want to have agendized on a further future item, the automobiles that are parking along Victoria by Gumtree Lane. there will be a time when somebody is unfortunately hit with all the vehicles. The last count I had was 48 vehicles parked there. But we also have boats on trailers that are not hooked up. We have trailers full of garbage. We have trucks and cars that are not licensed, and they're parked on the public street. And there are times that if a person takes the initiative and just pays a little bit of attention, they will see that those same vehicles are moved around and they're parked on Teal Club Road for a period of time, and then they're back on Victoria. That has to stop. That may-
What happened? Bert, you're on mute.
May I start over, Mayor, please?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and the general public, I apologize. First, I'd like to compliment Mayor Pro Tem Brian McDonald on his issue of the St. John's Hospital. And I want to compliment him because he's not a Johnny-come-lately on this matter. He's been
So
after
council
this-
member, we heard that one, and
It's his last statement.
yeah, it cut off as you were finishing up, I think, on your Victoria parking issue.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, City Attorney Fisher. Thank you, I appreciate that. The Victoria Avenue. The vehicles are moving around from Victoria Avenue to Teal Club Road. It makes our city look like a dumping yard, a rolling wrecking yard, and we are not. The other issue is the short-term rental issues that are going on in the Harbor District 1 with concerns about who is allowed to be a short-term rental, when will code enforcement be able to get around and verify these things, and when will the compliance start to be enforced? That is becoming a very hot button issue. I've shared information with the city staff and I believe they will be getting on it. But if they are not, the general board of the Oxnard Shores Dune, the executive board, would like a face-to-face with the city management to find out what's going on. And I think, I think this is a very smart idea to highlight some businesses in our community. And there's a tremendous amount of great businesses in our community. And there's, of all the 7 that are up on the board, there's going to be people that are going, why didn't you pick me? Why didn't you pick me? This is going to be an ongoing thing, I believe, and a compliment to the general manager. The reason I picked Otani's, as a youngster, brought up in a Catholic church. That doesn't mean good, bad, or indifferent, but I was brought up in the Catholic church, and Catholics don't eat meat on Friday. They needed fish, and Otani's was the fish market. 1952. This organization, this business, this family-run business has been here for 69 years, 69 consecutive years. They've seen the ups and downs of Oxnard and the tenacity of that family to stay in that business. The current owners, Baldonado and, beg your pardon, Tenny Baldonado and Karen Otani Baldonado. My hats are off to them. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll get a good meal and a square deal at Otani's Seafood, located 608 South A Street in Oxnard, in downtown. And I believe that's it. And Mayor, thank you for letting me go on. I didn't realize the thing muted. And City Attorney, thank you for correcting me where I was. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. I also, like everybody else, I'd like to give my condolences to the young lady, the 13-year-old that passed away at the corner of, at the accident of corner Gonzalez and Rose. It's a tragedy that happened there. I know there's a lot of traffic there, but it's just unfortunate. I'd just like to share that I had the opportunity to attend the 29th annual Rehab Point Picnic at Oxnard Beach Park. And I want to thank Christina Portillo for putting the event together every single year, with the exception of the pandemic last year, the COVID-19. Additionally, I want to thank the veterans at DAV, the Oxnard City Corps, the Elks Club, and numerous other volunteers for the continued support at rehab for disabled individuals. Additionally, number 2, I also attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for Tratos de las Americas. I want to thank Juan Gonzalez, Mr. Dolan, and also Margaret Cortesi for the wonderful event they had the other day, and they continue to support the downtown businesses, and hopefully everybody else does too. And then I had also the opportunity on the way out right there, I visited some local artists there in the corner of 6th and C Street. And I just want to thank our youth for their artistic talents. And that's really great when you stop. I really didn't realize what they were painting, but once I got to see what they were painting, it made a lot of sense. It's kind of weird painting too, but once you talk to them, you understand more or less what they're thinking. And I also want to thank our city staff, different departments. I want to thank Rebecca Guevara, Ignacio Carrillo, and the staff from the ER Environmental Resources Department for the excellent work in picking up all legal dumping throughout the city, as the city manager mentioned earlier. In fact, I've seen, for example, right at City Hall, there was a 2-yard container that was full of trash. We called them. 5 minutes later, they picked it up. There's trash over where I live, right behind Popeye's Chicken. That alley was really horrible. If you go out there and wash your car, they cleaned it up, they maintained it. And also the one of the things that I like to share that they're just doing an excellent job. Also, I want to thank Joe Perez from Parks and all the Parks employees for the excellent work they're doing throughout the city on our mediums, in our parkways, and our gateways. And also want to thank the volunteers, Marvin Booz, Doug Pertello, Michael Mercurio, and all the volunteers that they do for working throughout the city to help our city. And also, of course, our city residents. I want to tell them, be patient because we're going to get to your street. We're going to get there. We're going to help you out. And also, I believe that we're on the right path of cleaning our city, and we're going to get there soon to help you out. Additionally, I want to ask our residents to help us clean our city, to make sure they don't dump illegal, and make sure that they help us out. This is your city, and we need to be proud of it. I also want to thank our staff and our city manager, because our signs are all over the city. It says Measure E at Work, and you can see all the people trimming and cleaning our mediums, and it's just really fantastic. And as mentioned earlier too, the Cowboys are coming to town. They're coming to town this Saturday, and we're going to have the grand opening there at 10 a.m. here on the corner of Ventura and Vineyard. So it starts at 10 a.m., which I think is really important that we support the Cowboys. And of course, up in the board, I have Tomas Cafe. Tomas Cafe, if you want to have some really good pastries and some coffee, he has some excellent food. If you want to dine, I'm not sure if you can go in now, but I know you can dine out in the curb and look at them, enjoy the sunshine here in Oxnard. It's really, really, they serve some good food. So that's all I have. And Mayor Pro Tem, you want to share additional information?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got so sidetracked with my other comments, I forgot to mention my restaurant, which is BG's Cafe. And I'm a fairly newcomer to this community. I've only been here since 1973, but BG's is owned or was owned by Bill and Gloria Stewart, hence the name BG's Cafe. And when they retired and sold the business, they sold it to Jose and Veronica, who have done a wonderful family job. Jose and Veronica are married. They're carrying on the tradition, and it was very important to Bill and Gloria to find a family-oriented ownership team for BG's Cafe. Same good food. Jose is a chef on top of everything else. He's updated a lot of things. Excellent food. Excellent homemade chorizo for burritos and eggs and everything else. It's phenomenal. And I'm actually pretty proud that 3-4 of the restaurants mentioned are all in my district. So I want to thank the rest of the council for recognizing the excellent culinary possibilities in downtown Oxnard and supporting these businesses, because they are all very well deserving. So thank you for allowing me to catch up, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for sharing that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, City Manager?
I'm sorry, are we finished with the?
Yes,
Okay.
we're done.
Because we
yes.
do have one item of business under this section, but I want to make two quick comments. First is a serious one, which is with regard to the St. John's / Trauma Designation Center topic. I just want to inform the council and the public that the county CEO, Mr. Mike Powers, has already reached out to me yesterday, and we are going to work together to bring an informational item both to our Public Safety Committee as well as the entire council. And we'll do this as soon as we can in the fall. So I want to let everyone know that he's on top of it, and I will be supporting his efforts to bring that informational item before you and our community. And then the second thing I want to say on a lighter note, when our communications director, Ms. Katie Casey, and I were discussing this segment about promoting local businesses to help everyone recover from COVID, I'm just surprised that it's all eateries. It's just fascinating, interesting to me. We're going to be doing this at every council meeting. And if you all as a group stay on this path, you're all going to be getting larger and larger as we reach the holidays. So just as a reminder, any local business is recommendable. Thank you.
The only thing that we're concerned about is the clerk and myself and our city attorneys. We don't get any meals here, and everybody's, ensuring their meals, and we're here working away. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next item is the city manager department item, and this is a subject appointment of a member to serve on the city's downtown design review committee. And the recommendation is the city council make the following appointments to the downtown design review committee is David Farron and Tyson Klein. And of course, this item was also recorded as a measurement as a pre-recorded item. And I have a speaker on this item before we continue, and it's Lucy Cartanejega. Is Lucy on, Madam Clerk?
Lucy Cartagena?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, hello. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi. So good evening, everybody. And first and foremost, thank you for acknowledging downtown. It's awesome. But anyways, my concern is if I notice and I read that for appointing people for the downtown, not city residents. That's a problem. Not residents running our city.
Okay.
So why would we put that? It should be local people first. It should be the local people, especially people living in that residing area, to sit on that board because they would make recommendations that would pertain to the issue, as opposed to bringing somebody that may have a business here but lives in Thousand Oaks. Everybody comes and has businesses here and makes profit off of Oxnard, but they don't actually live here. And they don't actually are invested here. They're invested in their business, not the people. There's a big difference, big difference. I really think that should be changed to people living, appointed in the city that are actual residents of the city of Oxnard that can make decisions pertaining to the city of Oxnard that make sense. I know you guys want to open it up to the public, but it makes no sense to have somebody that lives in a different city come and talk about issues and actually have a say on changing our landscape of our city. That is just not right. And you guys need to change that. Just change that one part. Maybe one person outside the city limit that can sit on there, but to let board members sit there that do not live in our city and are not invested in the community's changing landscape, especially in the heart of downtown. Especially in the heart of downtown. Let them sit on the board at River Park. Let them sit on the board somewhere else. But it wouldn't make it right to sit in the heart of downtown or to sit in South Oxnard. So that just does not make sense. So change that. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, council members, any concerns or items on this particular item? We do have Mrs. Klima for any information. Oh, we don't. No comments. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move the recommended action.
We got a first by Mayor Pro Tem,
Second.
The second by Councilwoman Lopez. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes, I do want to state that I believe the speaker had some excellent points, but if we don't have qualified people for that position in the city, our hands are tied. Yes.
Councilmember Tehran,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Lucia, for those comments also. Our next item is a review of the consent items, and I do not have any speakers here for this item. And of course, then we have items 1 to 7. Council members, any concerns or item, or you have motion to approve? Oh, Councilmember Perrello?
I have a question on number 6 and number 7.
Okay, go ahead. 6 and 7.
On item number 6, there is an item later in the evening having to do with fees, developer fees. And I know that there's been questions with consultants approaching various council members asking what they can do to have fees reduced. And I'd like to find out just how would somebody get the fees reduced if the council has approved the increase in fees? Some of them just recently last year that hadn't been increased since 1972. And if a developer or individual wanted to get the fees decreased for that individual, how do they go around doing that on a legal action that was taken by the council? If I could get somebody to address that, I'd strongly appreciate that.
Would that be Mr. City Manager?
Yes, I can address that. So on the surface, they can't. Now there's no harm and there's nothing that prevents anyone from asking the council as a body to, on a specific project, to reduce or waive fees or anything. I can tell you for certain, chances are I would never recommend agreeing to that. But the short answer is they can't do it, although they have a right to ask the council as a body to do it.
Thank you very much. So I feel comfortable with that answer, but just one final. There's nothing that can happen under the table if they get the fees reduced. The council would find out about it. The public would find out about it. Am I correct?
In an ideal world, yes, council member.
Okay. And if something like that did happen and the public didn't find out about that, somebody's breaking the law, correct? Maybe the city attorney can answer that. Because there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of complaints by people saying, well, the fees are too high, the fees are too high. But they weren't too high, in other places, and they pay the bills. But Oxnard, apparently they felt comfortable with asking for considerations in the past. And because there's a new council and a new management, maybe they're more resistant to paying the current fees. And that's why I asked the questions. I have no examples in mind, no names will be given, but I just want it, I want on the record on saying that. And thank you for your answer. And Mr. City Attorney, if we did find that, that would be something that we would take to the legal authorities?
Well, I'm not sure that I understand what it is you're raising on there, but just in general, I think that's why that it's important for the city to have periodic review of its fees and updating of them.
Okay, because I will share this. It had not to do with fees, but it has to do with development. The Ventura Regional Sanitation District just had to approve a major change order. And that major change order had to do with as-built. When we have changes coming from one person gets an approval, they give it to another person to build a project, they sell it to a third person to finish the project, and changes are made. The organization, in that case, the board, is unaware of the as-built changes. And unless we have some sharp people paying attention and keeping the board members or the council, in this case, informed, we could be stuck with something that we don't know where the pipelines are. We don't know where the depth is. And I'm using that as an example I learned in another board to share with this council and the public of this city. That's why I bring these questions up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other concerns, board members? If not, we need a motion for Councilman Turan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know that, I believe that Councilmember Perrello had brought up item 7 as well. Okay.
Yes.
I have a question too, but I'll give the time back to Councilmember Perrello since he had brought it up originally.
Well, do you have a concern on number 7? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Ron. Yes, on item 7, in the past, there was an issue where people that worked for the city for decades didn't receive what they were entitled to. I want to make sure that the public hears this item, not that it just gets passed on a consent. Mr. Navu, the Human Resources, the people that are entitled to these benefits on item 7, will they be made whole? That's my simple question. And made whole meaning, in plain English, they get what they've earned and deserve.
Councilmember Perrello, Mike Moore, Human Resources Manager. Yes, they will be made whole. They will receive their contributions back as well as interest accrued from the time that it was deposited. And we've got the calculations for that. So everyone who has money in that system will be made whole.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. I appreciate the frankness of your answer, and I really appreciate your response. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Turan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Moore or Mr. Navu, for this particular item, when it came to Finance and Governance Committee, I think we had some really great discussion about it. I appreciate the work that's been put into it. One question that came up at that committee, which we received a response that it was in process. I just wanted to follow up on it real quickly, and that's regarding anyone who is still in the process of being tracked down because maybe they worked for the city decades ago, when as far back as this goes. And my question is, what will happen if those people are unable to be located, or if it's found that maybe they've passed away? Will their successors or their next of kin receive this? I'm just curious about what the plan is in those particular situations.
Councilmember Turan, we haven't anticipated running into an issue where someone may have passed away, although I'm sure there's a mechanism to deal with that, whether it's escheatment to the state or getting a form to where it can be passed to their heirs. I think we can accomplish that with our attorney's assistance. And you're right, there are a number of former employees that are going to be difficult to track down. However, we're engaging a firm by the name of Pen Checks that will be able to find everyone based upon a social security number and or date of birth. So if we have one of those two items, which we do, I believe, for everyone on this list, we should be able to track them down.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Perrello. You still have you need additional information?
Apologize, I didn't get my hand down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if no additional questions, what's the pleasure of the city council? We have 7 items. Okay.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda items, Mayor.
Okay,
Second.
first by Councilwoman Lopez and second by Councilman Perrello. Roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next item is a report, and this is Community Development Department. And the subject is Avalon Homes Project Affordable Housing in Lieu Fee Request. The Planning and Zoning PZ Permit number 20600-07, pre-application located in the southeast corner of South Harbor Boulevard and West 5th Street, and just north of the existing Oxnard Dunes Division APN 196-010-275-225 and -235. And the recommendation is that the city council receive a summary report and provide comments on the pre-application request by Oxnard Dunes LLC to pay the city's affordable housing in lieu fees estimated at $2,016,000 instead of constructing 6 affordable housing units on site for a proposed residential subdivision project consisting of 56 residential dwelling units on an 8.775 acre of a 38.33 acre property consistent with ordinance number 2980. And of course, this is required by Measure M, which is a pre-recorded presentation. And we do have one speaker before we continue. And I'd like to call the speaker, and that's Roger Portier.
Mr. Mayor, this is Isidro Figueroa, the project planner. Do you mind if I just say a couple things before our speaker?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to recognize a comment made by the chairperson of the Oxnard Dunes Neighborhood Council, Jessica Paredes Ulloya. She identified some concerns the community has on the project. First, there's some concern about the proposed gating of the community. The neighborhood feels that it would create an unnecessary divide. There's also a request that voting be refrained on the proposal. She will like the neighborhood to have some say on the proposal, as well as preferring to have the units on site. And if the in lieu fee is approved, they would like to have the council consider keeping the financial contribution within the Oxnard Dunes neighborhood. I think this is also a good segue on staff helping the council frame what the goal is for tonight. The inclusionary housing ordinance has this unique feature which requires an applicant to request through a pre-application input from the council on the request to pay an affordable housing in lieu fee. Tonight, the council is not approving the request. It is only providing input on the request. Also, the council should not comment on the project itself or any component of the project. That could create a conflict down the line, since this project is going to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the City Council in the future, which could create a bias or a perceived bias, which would require a council person or a decision maker to recuse themselves from the decision-making process. So staff recommends to stay focused on the request, which is just to provide input on the affordable housing in lieu fee request from the applicant, which is required by our inclusionary housing ordinance. Staff, of course, is available for any questions the council might have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So you were sharing that we can only comment on the in lieu fees. Is that what you're?
It's correct.
Okay. Council, okay, thank you. Okay, so we do any additional comments from staff before we go to the speaker? Mayor Pro Tem, you want to share information now or?
No, I'll wait.
Okay, so we do have a speaker, and it's Roger Portier.
Mr. Poirier?
Good evening, Mayor Zaragoza and City Council and staff. I appreciate comments of Mr. Figueroa. I want to congratulate Councilman Perello on helping us get the Oxnard Dunes Neighborhood Council up and running in his district. It's really exciting to have a new neighborhood council, particularly in a part of the city where so many exciting things are about to happen. The city has just filed a grant application for a feasibility study to provide a wetlands for the Edison Canal. That should help with water quality, hopefully, in the Channel Islands Harbor, and perhaps create some recreational opportunities in the dune system that surround this proposed development. It's a very interesting development. It's kind of a wraparound to the existing housing that's already there. I don't know if you've heard, but the Parks and Rec Commission and also the INCO recently voted to recommend to council that Quimby fees only be spent in the neighborhoods where they were generated. The Oxnard Dunes neighborhood has a new Quimby balance of $293,243. And because they don't have a park to spend it in, and because they didn't have a neighborhood council, that's why I helped Jack Villa and Councilman Perello get this neighborhood council up and running. And I want to congratulate Jessica Paredes Ulloa, the new neighborhood chair, and her executive board, because they did a great job. They had a good turnout. They leafleted their neighborhood. It was, it's just a perfect example of when a neighborhood council gets started. And they want to have input on things happening in their neighborhood. And of course, they're concerned about being completely enclosed in a way by, at least on the dune side of things, they would have a wraparound gated community between them and the dunes, which is kind of a weird thing. I would hope that council someday just not allow any more gated communities in Oxnard. We have several of them. I believe they divide neighborhoods. It's almost like these weird fence compounds within the city. So, those are comments for a later time. I'm perfectly happy to support the developers' request for paying in lieu fees instead of building low-income housing in this neighborhood. That seems like a very reasonable request. But I wouldn't give away any leverage you have over with the developer right now, because we really need to have some kind of recreational opportunity in that neighborhood. And I really hope that I can work with, talk to them as a member of the Parks and Rec Commission about possibly creating maybe a 1 or 1.5 acre park inside the Oxnard Dunes neighborhood. I think they would do a huge amount for recreational opportunities for young families with children. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. You guys are burning through this agenda. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am, just looking at this, and I certainly don't have a problem with the request because that's been a city policy to be able to make that request for a long time. But the only thing that struck me as odd is looking at the parcel map, which is on page 425 of the packet. The map I see shows RP, which, if memory serves me correctly, that's resource protected. But I don't come from the planning development side of the world, so I'm guessing at this. But it just seems odd that unless that's going to be part of the application process to look at that RP designation and change that, I just don't know. So maybe staff can give me a little bit of insight as to how that will flow.
Yeah, can we answer the council member, Mayor Pro Tem's question, either Vito or staff?
Ms. Mayor, again, this is Isidro Figueroa. The applicant is not proposing to include any development within the RP designated portion of the project. In fact, they're proposing a restoration plan on the RP, so it will be left alone. There is some inclusion of trails and restoration work of the dunes, but no development on the RP zone parcels.
Okay, so we're just looking at development for the R2C zone then?
Correct.
Thank you very much. That takes care of my question.
Thank you, Cedro. Thank you. Any other questions on this item? The question we had to do with the in lieu fees. We have Councilman Turan, followed by Councilman Lopez, and then Perello.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Lopez beat me by just a few seconds. If she'd like to go. No, she's letting me go. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Lopez. My question is in regards to the written comment that was submitted to the city clerk, and Mr. Figueroa had mentioned it as well. For the newly formed neighborhood council, which again, congratulations to them for getting that together and providing a forum for your residents to be able to talk about these neighborhood issues. My question is, in the request to utilize any in lieu fees, if this were to go forward and ultimately end up in the developer paying the in lieu fees, is there a mechanism that would allow the city to keep in lieu fees in that geographical area or within that neighborhood as requested by the written comment? That's my only question. Thank you.
The citywide. Hold on. We'll have our city attorney, Ken, give us an explanation. Go ahead, Ken.
Good evening. The in lieu affordable housing fee is not by neighborhood. It's to benefit the entire city. So to the extent that the council votes to recommend that the in lieu fee be paid, that money should and could be used throughout the city to create housing opportunities. So the entire city would benefit, not just one particular area. In addition, based on some of the recent affordable housing projects that we've had, a $2 million assistance would go a long ways in creating dozens of new affordable housing units versus just the 6 units that would be created if they were built on site. So the short answer is no, we would not recommend that it be limited to the Dunes neighborhood, but benefit the entire city or different areas within the city.
And Ken, you know, the Mita project is a good example of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That could help the affordability of building other homes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rizal. And I know I said that was my only question, but one did just pop to mind, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. I just, for planning staff, after this item leaves council tonight, I just want to confirm that there will be outreach to the new neighborhood council around next steps for the development and inclusive practices with them. Is that correct?
I'm sure.
Councilmember Terran, thank you for the question. This is Isidro Figueroa again. The project requires a community workshop. So that would mean that all property owners within the Oxnard Dunes would be notified of that workshop. The Planning Commission and City Council will require public hearings, which means there will be notice. So again, all property owners will be notified within 300 feet of the project site, and any interested party who requests to be notified. Also, we would advertise it in our city's project or planning project website, and also there will be on-site boarding notifications on the site of future meetings.
Okay, I appreciate that. That is great to hear the process on that. Thank you for going over that. I would just like to ask that planning staff, if not included in the regular process that we have in place, if outreach specific to the newly formed neighborhood council can happen, whether it is to specifically invite them, their chair, executive board, and residents to existing meetings, or an offer or fulfillment of a request to their neighborhood council to come and present to their council, if that can please be kept in mind as well. I know when I was a neighborhood council chair, I would have a meeting outside of the community workshop process so that we would have a little bit more open forum for our discussion, and it would be on the agenda as the agenda item versus maybe it's in a community workshop with other planning items where you may be limited on time. So not a criticism, but just something I would like to throw out there and request. Thank you again for the extra time, Mayor, and thank you planning staff for your work on this.
Councilmember Terran, real quick, I have reached out to Chairperson Paredes, and I have offered my assistance in any possible way. So we've contacted her already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Isidro. I'm sure that's part of the process anyway, because you have to notify the public about that too. Okay, Councilman Lopez. Councilwoman Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start off with a comment. You know, with this being an affordable housing in lieu fee, you know, I'm not going to lie that there's a certain piece of this that doesn't quite sit well with me when there's developments I want to keep certain families, certain individuals out of the area. You know, based on the affordability of the units, and you know, it's almost as if saying that only certain people should be on the coast. So I just wanted to mention that as you know, a concern of mine. But in terms of the in lieu fees, if Mr. Figueroa can further explain, you know, what this process is like with the fund. How is that equivalent? You know, $2 million. How does that translate to affordable units being built in other parts of the city? Is it a 1-for-1 that this translates to, or is there based on the pot of money that sits in the fund?
Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, I'd like to see if our housing director is here. I think he's best suited to answer that question. I hope he's here. I don't know if he is.
I'm here.
There he
Yeah.
is.
Yes, I can answer that question. So what would happen is that the housing department would receive that $2 million, and then we would use it in a way that contributes to our development of affordable housing programs. So as an example, at Second and B, we contributed $1.5 million and produced 56 units of affordable housing because we were able to leverage an additional 30-some million dollars for the $1.5 million. So that's what we would do somewhere in the city for the use of those $2 million, as opposed to only the units that they would be conditioned to build. So that would be our response for that $2 million.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. That's it.
Councilmember Perillo?
Thank you. I appreciate this item, and I want to share. It's only fair to give credit when there's a lot of people that deserve the credit. Martha Guillen, Jack Villa, and Roger Parizeau were very instrumental in getting that meeting organized, and the members of that neighborhood council that showed up. I think there were 13 people that showed up. So this is what's important. They needed to have a quorum. They needed to have interest. They needed to have a meeting, and they needed to take a vote. And it all happened on the very first attempt, which is a rare thing in creations of neighborhood councils, and tremendous amount of credit. The board members are Danelle Hernandez, Lori Burke, and Jessica Pedero. And all credit in the world to them and their neighborhood council. A couple of questions that I have. And I do agree with Councilmember Lopez on something. When you look at if there's affordable housing, there should be affordable housing, but it was supposed to happen at Victoria Estates. It didn't happen there. And, things happen. And this money can probably do us more good in other areas. But I don't think that the council is trying to remove people or prevent them from living on the coast. I just needed to address that because this is the point I'm trying to make. It took forever to get these fees jacked up. And we had an earlier item where the council took a position to raise these fees. At the end of the third year, in the PowerPoint presentation that we're not be able to see tonight because of Measure M, it's $36,000 per affordable unit. You can't even buy a good RV for $36,000, let alone build an affordable unit. But it's a lot better than what the councils had in the past of $5,000. So they're trying to pool this money together. And, it's not a perfect world. If it was a perfect world, we'd have affordable housing units there and it'd be first come, first serve. However it would work, whether it's farm workers or nurses or teachers or cops or firemen, whatever it would be. But this developer is making a pitch. And I respect and I'm really grateful there's somebody working for the city of Oxnard that took the opportunity to ask to speak first and explain what this item is and what we can and can't say. But we've all gotten a little bit off that. So I'd like to bring two things to our attention. Mr. Brian Yennis deserves a lot of credit for getting the trees trimmed on the corner of Beachcomber and Harbor. That had been a big issue with that neighborhood. They couldn't see getting out of it. There have been a lot of accidents. And there are residents that are concerned with the property. And I believe the property is owned by the same individual that's requesting this. And the name is, where's the name?
Councilmember Perillo, again, the purpose of this item tonight is on the housing in lieu fee request, the pre-application request. We're not here to discuss anything else about the project. That will come at a later date.
Okay, then, but I would like to just state this for the record. Mr. Mike Marlowe is apparently the company. There's been asks by that neighborhood council to their neighbor, apparently Mr. Marlowe owns this, to trim the brush that is on his property where there was a fire from a homeless encampment. And these people are concerned the fire gets to the brush, growing through the fence and gets in their homes. And I'm taking this opportunity to put that on the public record. And I hope Mr. Marlowe is listening, or his advisors, because that's a big deal. And on the last thing, on respect specifically to what we're here tonight, in in future, would there be need, since there is now a fixed price for affordable, to have this kind of a meeting? Because it seems that it's simply the individual is making a promise, but if he sells the property to somebody else, do we go through the same thing again? I hope we can get somebody to answer that question, because it seems useless it would seem not very sharp to waste the council and the staff's time if this is simply something that can be sidetracked by a different manner.
Else? No? Ken? Ken, have our city attorney go ahead.
To address that issue, the item before the council tonight is whether you want to allow the in lieu fee to go forward. Let's assume the council votes to do that. And then let's assume that the planning commission and city council approve this project with those conditions. If a new developer bought the property, they would then be required to comply with the requirements, including paying the in lieu fee of over $2 million. So otherwise they would not be allowed to develop the property. So at such time, if the planning commission and city council approve this project, then those are the conditions that must be met in order to develop it. Otherwise, the property will remain in its current state. So there are very strong conditions in place, if approved, to ensure that this money would be provided and would be available for affordable housing elsewhere within the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosell. You put my mind at ease. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. That's the last of my questions.
Thank you. And those items are recorded, right, Ken? Those items are recorded. So when they convey the property, that recordation comes up.
It would be in the final map. So yes.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Madrigal.
Thank you. Wanted to focus on a couple of things, one of which, piggybacking off Council Member Lopez's comments. I guess for the low-income units, the median income here in Ventura County is $98,800 for a family of four. So any family of four making under $90,350 would qualify for low-income housing. Right off the bat, this is a way, this goes back to my RENA comments a couple of months ago, where, I'm all for, having all types of housing. I'm all for, my huge argument and fight was that the number of low-income units were predominantly in a certain section of the city. That's what I was pushing for. That's what I was pushing against. Unfortunately, I had no support, but that's fine. This is just an example of what I was talking about. But at the same time, though, I do understand that rules are rules. We did hike up the fees for low-income units. Developer, would rather pay than build the low-income units, and I'm perfectly fine with that because, as I stated, rules are rules. Those were the rules set in place. My big fight over this, though, is, the city does say, this will get us a large number of units in different parts of the city. Again, it goes back to Councilmember Lopez's comments. You're saying a certain section of the city cannot enjoy the coast. You could visit, but you can't live there. It's perfectly fine. You mentioned the META project. I'm sure there'll be other projects that'll come up down the pipeline. But the same resources aren't given for those units than the other regular units. And, that's something that we need to look to as a city. Yes, instead of 6 units, you could probably build 60. But what's the quality of those 60 units? That's something that, we need to build X number of units, and that's perfectly fine. But we all know that our neighboring cities aren't even going to touch like 10% of the units that they need to build.
there's going to be an issue going long term, and doesn't sit well with me. But at the end of the day, rules are rules. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Tehran, do you have additional comments you want to make?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's a question, and I want to thank Councilmember Lopez and Councilmember Madrigal for those really important points. Looking at the what's in front of us on this agenda item for providing input and regarding the request for an in lieu fee, do we know what the I hope we're allowed to ask this, but do we know what the anticipated cost, the market rate cost would be for all of the other units, and what the cost would be for an affordable unit in this development if the developer were to develop the 6 affordable units? Do we know what that would look like, or is it we're not in a place to tell that right now? Is that too early?
Can we even discuss that?
At this point in time, it would be premature to estimate what the for sale price of the units. In all likelihood, it will be 3+ years before they could develop. So it's really impossible to predict where the market will be at that point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Roselle. And I bring that up because there was recently a development that occurred near my neighborhood on H Street. And I recall when that particular development was a little bit further along than this one is, it was mentioned that there would be X number of market rate homes and X number of affordable units. And the affordable units was estimated to be at 450,000. And looking at where we are here, I just was wondering in my head what that would look like. What does affordable look like relative to the location where we are? This is an interesting conversation because on one hand, I agree that, or what's been put out there, that we should be offering opportunities for all families to be able to live by the coast or in any of the developments that are coming up in our city. On the flip side, $2 million could go a long way for a number of affordable units, as has been mentioned as well. So I appreciate all the points that have been brought up. I'm really thankful for this discussion, and I'll be interested to see kind of where we go as a council. Thank you for the extra time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Tehran. And I really heard everything that everybody said, but I think when the council members mentioned that we have to build up the affordability amount of monies that we can help other units to be built. Now one of the things that we also have to take in mind that affordability in that area would be tremendous, because I'm sure that those homes are going for a couple of $1 million, so to come up with an affordable housing there, that you probably have to have somebody that earns about $200,000 or $150,000 a year just to afford an affordable house in that area. So the comments that were shared by the council members are correct. So it's very, very difficult to have affordable, what we call affordable there. Affordable, like you mentioned, Councilor Tehran, in your area, maybe it's 500,000, maybe affordable, low affordable, there might be $1 million. Who knows, but those are good comments. But today, the question is, they're requesting that the in lieu fees be part of the request that we have today. So, council members, any motion on this item? Up or down?
I was just receiving file and offer comment.
Okay. So is that, we're okay with that? Okay, we'll get a second. The receive and file item.
Second.
Okay, second by Councilman Lopez. Mayor Pro Tem made it first. Any additional information, Mr. City Attorney Ken?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick point of order. If it's just receive and file and offer comments, I don't think that's an action item. I think we're done with this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll go to the next item.
A question?
Yes, sir.
Can I get an answer from the city attorney? If this is simply a receive and file, how do we hold somebody's feet to the fire if they want to change? Unless the council takes an action.
Ken.
At this point in time, this is a pre-application. So it is to give the opportunity for the developer to gauge the support from 4 or more members of the council for this or not. And then the developer can make the decision if they want to move forward with their application, which will go to the planning commission and then to the council, which would include the in lieu fee versus building on site. And that way they'll be able to make their determination. So I'm hopeful, of course, the developer is watching tonight and can determine whether or not there is support of 4 members of the council or more for the in lieu fee.
To continue, just more like a preview process.
Yes, this is a preview, but it's not locked in, Councilmember Perlo, until such time as there's approval by the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we'll go ahead and continue to our next item. And item number 2, this is a community development item and subject to master lease agreement for wireless installation in municipal facilities. And the recommendations of the city council approve a resolution for the MLA inclusive of site permit process and design standards for wireless installation on municipal facilities. And of course, this went over to the Public Works Transportation Committee and it was passed by 3-0. And I think I have a couple of speakers on this item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead,
if I can have,
City Manager.
yes, if I can ask Mr. Roselle to make some introductory remarks before we begin.
Ken, go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just first wanted to provide a brief overview of how we've gotten here tonight. City staff have been working with the major wireless carriers for more than 2 years regarding the master license agreement. We've held a number of meetings with the representatives of AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and Verizon, and many changes were made to the original version of the master license agreement. After the Public Works and Transportation Committee provided input at the March 23rd meeting, staff held a stakeholders meeting on May 20th with representatives from AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile to obtain further input from the 3 carriers. The city made a number of the changes requested by the carriers, including by Verizon, and we believe that this is a strong document that reflects the input. It's important to note, I believe the council members did receive an email from AT&T indicating that they support the master license agreement in its current state. On the other hand, I believe council received a letter from an attorney representing Verizon dated July 19th, 2021. Basically, Verizon is seeking another bite of the apple, seeking to overturn and change more of the regulations. So there are 3 different categories of changes Verizon is seeking. Their first 6 requested changes are seeking relief from 6 reasonable city design standards. They don't want to follow these standards that the city is allowed by federal law to impose. So these are more aesthetic regulations, and the city has the right to do that. So we, of course, recommend those do not be changed. They also want to delete standard city language regarding the public health, safety, and welfare as it relates to these standards. That is standard language that is needed to protect the city's residents. And finally, the last change they want to make, as indicated in the July 19th letter, is to remove appeals language. Staff strongly recommends against removing this language. We believe that the MLA meets the current federal standards, but the appeals process would provide a manner to make changes if needed for specific projects based on specific criteria. And after you accept public testimony from the 2 Verizon representatives, staff would then recommend that the council approve the MLA in its current form and reject the proposed Verizon changes that are outlined in their July 19th.
And that would be item 1 and 3, Ken?
That is correct, yes. Yes. And then I'd happy to answer any questions now or after you accept the public testimony from the 2 Verizon representatives.
Okay, so we have Councilman Pirelli. You want to hear the Verizon representatives first before your comments?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's go ahead. Let's listen to them. And who are they? And
Daisy Uy Kampan.
Yes, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
And Diane Rojas after
Yes.
that.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Zaragoza and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. My name is Daisy Weekenpang on behalf of Verizon on item K2. Verizon appreciates the city's efforts to update its existing site permit process and design standards with regards to wireless telecommunications facilities. Verizon also appreciates and thanks the city and the community development staff for accommodating our request for a stakeholders meeting with the industry and Verizon to go over some suggested revisions to the draft process and design standards, including adopting some minor suggested revisions provided to the city. I'm here today to simply encourage the City Council to direct staff to implement further suggested revisions as identified by Verizon's outside counsel in a letter sent to the City Council yesterday. Our council's letter identifies additional recommendations to the draft process and design standards that would align the draft process and design standards more with federal and state requirements and would allow for streamlined deployment of better wireless infrastructure and 5G in the city. To clarify, Verizon is not saying that we would not follow the design standards or the health and safety requirements. We are merely making suggestions that would make it that are based on technical standards and what we can do today, and based on what we've been building in different cities across Southern California. So all we're asking is the opportunity to work further with staff on these design standards as well as these requirements. As such, I request that our council's letter be incorporated to the administrative record herein by reference. Verizon looks forward to a continued good relationship with staff in the city, and we are available to collaborate further with the city on various provisions on the draft process and design standards that are of concern. Thank you for the time to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Diane Rojas.
Diane Rojas. You may unmute by pressing *6.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Wonderful. Good evening. My name is Diana Rojas. I work with Daisy Weekenpang at Verizon. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much to the mayor and council members this evening for the opportunity to speak. I especially want to give a special thank you to Mayor Zaragoza and Council Member Lopez, as well as City Manager Alex for meeting with Daisy and I on different occasions these past 2 months. I want to clarify regarding the master lease agreement presented before you this evening that Verizon fully supports the master lease agreement and that the issues that Daisy spoke about were pertaining more to design standards. But with regard specifically to the master lease agreement, I would like to acknowledge and thank Isidro, Scott, Vito, Ken for the prior opportunity to meet. I appreciate on behalf of Verizon the revisions to the agreement. Section 8.2, the insurance, annual attachment rate, CPI, just meeting in the middle. On behalf of Verizon, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, incorporate the changes as Ken discussed. So just to clarify, I just wanted to show up tonight to thank everyone that I mentioned for the opportunity to speak, to meet with Daisy and I, to continue to work with Verizon. And we fully support the master lease agreement as presented this evening. And we look forward to continuing to work and deploy within the city of Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Councilman Perello, you had a question?
I'm going to pass right now. I'm going to pass.
Okay, Councilman Turan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the two representatives from Verizon for being here tonight to speak during public comment on this item. I have a couple of questions. Well, one question first, and I'm not sure if someone from planning or Mr. Rozelle would answer this. Looking at the letter that was sent from Verizon Wireless regarding this item in front of us, they had a question about, or they had a recommendation to remove the appeals process. And can you explain that a little bit, what the appeals process why there's an appeals process in this draft. And if we were to eliminate it, what would be the alternative to that?
Ken?
Happy to address that. The appeals language is very important because given the rapidly changing regulations, both at the state and federal level, even though our regulations can be 100% compliant as of today, by tomorrow there could be needs for there to be modifications. There's also specific situations in which Verizon, T-Mobile, or AT&T may need some slight modifications to our regulations based on a specific requirements of a location. So the appeals provision provides I would say, a safety hatch to allow important installations to be improved and in an expedited manner, because we want the city to have strong wireless capability as well. So if we took this appeals language out, to answer your specific question, then the next step for the carrier would be litigation, or they would seek to trigger the shot clock, which will allow them to build whatever they wanted without any city input. So this is a very important step to ensure that the carriers and the city work together to have installations that meet the needs of both the carriers and of the city. So this is very, very important language that the city attorney's office strongly recommends remain in the document.
And that protects not only the carrier, but also our residents, which I think is important.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brazil. I appreciate that. And I asked that question because I read through the letter and then looked at the staff report, and I appreciate the explanation. That is how I was interpreting that, and it sounds like it's a very important process for them to say in the letter that they're suggesting modest revisions. I think removing an appeals process and forcing things to go to litigation seems to me to be a little bit more than modest. And I say that respectfully. I've been a Verizon Wireless customer for the better part of 20 years probably. And I feel like in the consumer side of things, they forced me into binding arbitration. I can't go to court with them right away, but I appreciate the input on that, and I appreciate the answer to that. And I understand we received a letter from AT&T. I apologize. I think that it didn't get attached to the email that came to me. But can we share with the members of the public what AT&T's suggested revisions at this point are, if any, and if we've heard from T-Mobile? I'm just wondering if those other stakeholders, 2/3 of the equation, have weighed in this as well.
Yes, Councilmember Turan, and we received an email from a representative from AT&T indicating they support the MLA and supporting documents in their current form. So they are not seeking any modifications, but do support to what is before the City Council this evening. And I would ask Mr. Kowitz or Mr. Figueroa to discuss discussions that were had with T-Mobile.
Thank you, Ken. Councilmember Terran, I have had discussions with representatives from T-Mobile. They did not have any opposition to the MLA or design guidelines. They did not forward a letter of support, but in terms of my communications, which the last one was this morning, they did not voice any concerns or recommended any changes to the MLA or design guidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Perrella.
I think that Councilman Turan pretty much hit it on the button. We have city staff that works for the city to protect the council and the residents. And to go against the city staff's recommendation, I believe would be foolhardy and very foolhardy and not appropriate for the residents of the city. All due respect to the ownership and the shareholders of one of the major communications companies, they want changes. Mr. Turan was absolutely right. My carrier, you have to go to binding. You don't, you lose your rights. When the big guy tells you what he wants to do to service you, you need to realize that your attorney, who you're paying good money for his wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and this one and Mr. Roselle, you've got a good one. If you don't listen, you're a damn fool. I would move this recommended action.
Okay, and we need a second. The recommendation would be also to support item 1 and 3. Is that correct, Ken? With that motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify the recommendation, excuse me, the recommendation is that the city council approve a resolution which includes the site permit process and design standards for wireless installation on municipal facilities. So that is the recommended
That's the
action.
recommendation.
Yes, that is correct. Mr. Figueroa, can you confirm that there's no other changes?
There's no other changes.
Okay, thank you. That was
And
my
I will
understanding.
second that, Mr. Mayor.
We got first by Perello, second by Turan. Roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Perello,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilman.
Mayor, and for the record, I am a Spectrum Mobile customer, but I'm sure they have binding arbitration too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Item number 3 is Public Works Department, is the introduction of ordinances amending Chapter 19, Public Works, Article 1, Sewage System, Wastewater Disposal of the Oxnard City Code. Recommendation is the City Council approve the first reading by title only and waive further readings of the ordinance amending the Oxnard Code Ordinance Chapter 19, Public Works, Article 1, Sewerage System, Wastewater Disposal sections. And that would be 19-3 abbreviation, 19-4 definitions, 19-25 prohibited discharge standards, 19.26 local limits, 19-36 additional pretreatment measures, 19-43 discharge from food establishments, vehicle maintenance facilities, and commercial and industrial laundries, and 19-51 industrial wastewater discharge permit requirements. And this was approved by the Transportation Committee 3-0, and this is, again, was required under Measure M, a pre-recorded presentation. And we have Mr. Brian Yanez. If we have any questions, council members, on this item. If not, do we have a motion for this item?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Perello,
Okay.
second by Councilman Madrigal. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Aye.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perello,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next item number 4 is Public Works Department. The award agreement A8354 to Toro Engineering Enterprises Incorporated for the Colonia Green Alleys Improvement Project specification number PW 18-63. And the recommendation is that the City Council, 1, approves the authorize the mayor to execute an agreement A-8354 with Toro Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $1,472,882.50 for the Colonia Green Alleys Improvement Project specification number PW 18-63, project number 183104. And number 2, approve $147,288 for project contingency for the Colonia Green Alley Improvement Project number 183104. And 3, approve $147,288 for engineering, inspection, survey, project management for the Colonia Green Alley Improvement Project number 183104. And number 4, approve the budget appropriation transfer of $873,216 from the Street Maintenance Operation General Fund 101, budget to the general fund, capital outlay fund 301, budget for this improvement projects. And of course, this is again was required by Measure M, a pre-recorded presentation. And we do have Mr. Brian Yanez for any questions and answers from the councils. Council members, any questions? If not, we need a motion to approve.
Move the recommended action.
Move by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Madrigal. Roll call.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Tehran,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, council members, and thank you, Madam Clerk. This is item number 5. This is the last item on the agenda. This is Public Works. Subjects is award agreement to Granite Construction Company A8353 for on-call arterial street improvement project. Specification number PW 21-88 and agreement A-8352 on-call concrete improvement project specification number PW 21-90 and agreement A8351 for an on-call local and collector street improvement project specification number PW 21-87. And the recommendation is the City Council approve and authorize the city manager to, number 1, execute agreement A8353 with Granite Construction Company not to exceed in the amount of $12 million for a one-year term ending August 31, 2022, with the option to extend up to 2 consecutive periods of 1 year each for a total contract not to exceed in the amount of $36 million for the on-call arterial street improvement specification number PW 21-88 and project 223102. And 2, execute agreement number A8352 with Granite Construction Company in the amount not to exceed $10 million for a 1 year term ending August 31, 2022, with the option to extend up to 2 consecutive periods of 1 year for a total contract not to exceed in the amount of $30 million for on-call concrete improvement specification number PW 21-90, project number 215709. And 3, execute an agreement A8351 with Granite Construction Company in the amount not to exceed $12 million for a 1 year term ending August 31, 2022, with the option to extend up to 2 consecutive periods for 1 year each for a total contract not to exceed the amount of $36 million for on-call local and collective streets improvement specification number PW 21-87 and project number 18306 and 203102, 205702, 215707, 215708, and 22, oh, let me start over again, 223106. And number 4, approve a budget appropriation transfer of $3,863,784 from the Street Maintenance Operations Fund 101, the budget to the Capital Outlay Fund 301, budget for the improvements of project fiscal year 2021-22. And this did not originate in committee, and we do have Brian Yanez to answer any questions that the council members might have. And Madam Clerk?
We have one public speaker.
One public speaker on this item, and the public speaker is Mr. Douglas Partello.
Mr. Partello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Yes. Before I begin, Mayor Zaragoza, I was here on my phone for my non-agenda item, and there was technical issues again. I guess I couldn't unmute myself. So I'm just going to ask if I may have my 3 minutes for the non-agenda item at this time.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Perello, let's go ahead and finish this one, and then after we finish that, you can continue with the 9 item. Let's continue on this item first.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. I wholeheartedly support the recommendation for this. Obviously, it's a long overdue and much needed item to improve our streets and alleys and sidewalks. Even in the nicer neighborhoods, like where I live in Cabrillo, we have some real risk of persons falling with the sidewalks because of the roots uplifting the slabs of sidewalks. I had 2 elderly people fall right in front of my house. Now, that's not my parcel of land, but that's the city property. So there's a real risk also for safety for folks, and we've had the bicycle incident and others. So as these plans are moving forward, I hope that there's a lot of consideration taken into the planning when these projects are started for bicycle and pedestrian safety also. And I did have a few questions about the various funds that were cited for some of the money coming from, and if staff or the appropriate person could help me out as to where the money has come from for these various funds. There's a, fund number 314, 315, 285. The 185 is obvious, that's the gas tax. So just to identify what are the sources of revenue for that. And I just support this fully. I think it's great that we're, getting around to this point to doing a lot of good work that's been long overdue on our streets. And if I could just get some answers to where those various funds and sources of revenue are coming from for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Mr. City Manager, that be Mr. Yanez or Brian?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. As part of the staff report and the financial report, it identifies those fund numbers. 185 is RMRA gas tax. 301 is the general fund capital outlay fund. 314 is the 2014 lease revenue bond fund. 315 is TAB Hero funds. 285 is CDBG entitlement funds. 315 is another TAB Hero fund. Same as 315 TAB Hero funds, and 301 another capital outlay fund, and then 185 is the RMRA gas tax fund. So they are identified in the staff report and in the power presentation that was.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much for that. Council members, Councilmember Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to recognize the work that's been put into this by staff, and thank you for putting all your work into this and bringing it forward. A question I have for the benefit of the public, because Measure M prevents the public from seeing a reenactment of the presentation at the live council meeting. I see the pre-recorded one has 23 views at this point. I'm wondering if staff wouldn't mind just briefly explaining what on-call means when we're looking at it in relations to streets and what this item is in front of us, just so the public can understand what that looks like and how it differs in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Councilman Tehran, and appreciate the hard work. City engineer and engineering staff put a lot of work into this to get where we are today and get to our PCI level of 70. I'm going to introduce Tatiana, our city engineer, that can go into more details on the presentation that she presented for the link on this report.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Councilmember Tehran, that's a fantastic question. The public should know how that works. So basically what we are trying to do with this is try to make the giant task of getting to the PCA of 70 over the next 3 years as streamlined as possible. And so what we mean by on-call is as we're, getting our plans ready for improvements throughout the city, whether it's for arterial roads or residential roads or our alleyways, having this on-call will allow us to get the contractor out in the streets and actually doing the work much faster than if we put each of those out to bid. For reference, to put it out to bid from the beginning of the bid process to when we actually have, boots on the ground work being done, it's approximately 6 to 7 months. This will actually allow us to get from, when it basically essentially tell them what it is that we're looking to do in the specific streets to when they're actually out there, it's going to be 2 weeks. So we're going from 7 months to 2 weeks. And this is how we're going to be able to achieve that PCI of 70 ultimately. And there's a whole process that goes, behind that, right? We still need some checks, and we'll be walking the site with the contractors before those what we're calling task orders are issued. But essentially, that's what we mean by on-call, the ability to be able to get what projects that we would have put out to bid otherwise done faster.
Mr. Tarankin, Councilmember, quick question, Tatiana. In other words, on-call means pre-approved, so we can eliminate the 7 months, and now we're starting within 2 weeks. Pre-approved might have been probably an easier definition as on-call. Just for my understanding too. That's a good question, Councilman Tarankin.
Yeah, that's correct. You're exactly right, Mayor. That's the perfect way to describe that.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Arno, and thank you, Mr. Yanes, and thank you for the time, Mayor. That's my questions.
Thank you. Okay, council members, any other questions on this item? And again, I agree with Doug, that this is great, that we're looking at improving our streets, and Mr. Yanes had mentioned, and Tatiana there, we're looking for the PCI 70, and I think it's a great start. I think having this individual from this company on call is really great. Councilman Perello.
I'd like to thank the two staff members that spoke. I'd like to thank Mr. Yanis for the very quick and accurate answers with respect to the funds. A lot of people wonder where the money comes from. Thank you very much, Mr. Yanis. And Ms. Arano, thank you for your responses. The engineer, you have all, you got the answers at the tip of your finger, and appreciate in the public. I do get feedback. They appreciate your responses, and the straightforward method that you give a response. I'd like to have make a suggestion for the city manager. As these projects go forward, under your city manager's report at the beginning of the council meetings, a 30-second, 40-second video, just what have we done in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, would go a long way. Pictures worth 1,000 words. Thank you.
Measure at work. Thank you. Council members, any other, do we need a motion on this item?
Move the recommended action.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Perello. Roll call.
Councilmember Perello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Teran.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, council members. Before we adjourn, we have a item not in the agenda because Douglas Perello is having a hard time with his phone. Doug, you're on, for 3 minutes before we adjourn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor Zaragoza, for this opportunity to speak on non-agenda. Before I move on to that, the answer that Brian Yanes gave was unresponsive to what I was really asking. Maybe he didn't realize what I was asking. I did do the presentation. I watched it and looked at those funds. I just want to know the source of revenue that goes into those funds. So that was really what my question was. On my non-agenda item, I'd like to speak about the homeless and those folks that are living in their cars, their RVs, their trailers out on the streets. I think this is part of the problem that we're seeing over on Victoria with all the cars. I think there's a number of folks out there that are unsheltered and they're using their vehicles as shelter. At this point, it's my understanding that whatever we're doing in terms of homeless outreach with the Solution Center, the Vagabond Inn, the cooperation and work with the county, that hasn't included a safe place at night for those folks using their vehicles to have a safe place to park. So it is a problem. We know that parking in general is a big problem in Oxnard because we have a lot of multi-families living in small apartments and houses. And so parking is just an issue overall. But it's a big problem for those folks that their only shelter is their vehicle. And the city of Santa Barbara provided a safe place for folks that are using their vehicles for shelter. And so they created a parking lot with porta potties, hand washing stations, access to water, and services. So that's a central location also that makes it easier for, police liaison that work with the homeless, social workers to get in touch. Because I've been a homeless advocate, and sometimes you have to be a sleuth to try to track some of these folks down because they're whack-a-mole from one street to the next. And so I'm glad that Councilmember Perillo would like this to be an agenda item that we could all speak about. I think that's great. If we could expand it to talk about, folks that are homeless and using their car. Many people may not realize, but in California, perhaps 10% of our college and university students, they're living in their cars. We have perhaps 4.2 million unaccompanied
35
minors and young
seconds.
adults that are living in their cars. So it's a big societal issue, and I'm glad that this might be a future agenda item. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug. And Brian, source of funding in 25 words or less.
Mayor, council members, I'll be more than glad to get back to Mr. Portello tomorrow, and I'll BCC the council on the exact funds and revenue sources of those accounts.
Thank you. And you can share that with the council members too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Right on.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.